Nobody Saves the World is one of the most perfect co-op games we have ever played. This game has you playing as Nobody, who finds a magic wand that allows him to transform into all sorts of different creatures, each with their own abilities. Now, player 2 plays as just a copy of Nobody, but it's extremely fun to play together, and it makes taking on enemies so much more enjoyable because you're able to go and help revive one another. This has a fantastic world to explore, a bunch of fun obstacles to overcome, a funny and unique story, and we highly recommend checking it out. The Nintendo Switch is jam-packed with multiplayer games, but it can sometimes be hard to find the good ones. So we're going to talk about 51 of them today. Let's keep going. Pizza Possum is an interesting one. This one has you playing as little possums, and I think player 2 plays as a raccoon, and your goal is to go up this mountain and eat all of the food that you can possibly find. You're getting chased around by dog security guards who are trying to catch you, and if one of you gets caught, you can actually go rescue each other. It's a fun little quirky game that doesn't take a lot of skill, and it goes by pretty fast. Cassette Beasts is the co-op Pokemon everybody has been waiting for. This game has you wash up on an island with no idea how you got there, and you actually end up learning that there's beasts on this island. You learn how to record them and transform into them yourselves. It has a pretty interesting story with some archangels and stuff and trying to figure out the mystery of the island. It is a fun little game, very similar to Pokemon, but introduces all of these new creatures with their own typings and all of that kind of stuff. Really fun way to experience a Pokemon-esque experience cooperatively. Chippy and Nopo is an adorable co-op puzzle game that has you trying to build toys out of blocks. Think kind of like Legos, and you're given this picture and you have to figure out how to assemble it. It gets more and more complicated as you go along. Some blocks are too heavy to lift up on your own, so you have to work together to carry them. Some blocks need to be split in order to get the right shape. Sometimes you need to take them over to a rotator to get them rotated. It is really fun and unique, and we had a blast playing this game. Disney Illusion Island is a 2D platformer with all of your favorite Disney characters. You get to play as Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy and explore the 2D world. It has some difficulty settings, so you can play it with kids that aren't very good, and you can also make it a little bit more difficult for you if you are a 2D platformer pro. It's a really fun game with a unique art style that adds that Disney flair. The Trine games, all of them are fantastic, but specifically I'll just recommend Trine 5 because we probably have the most amount of hours in that one. This one supports up to 3 players. One of you gets to play as a knight, one of you gets to play as a robber, archer type person, and the other gets to play as a wizard, and each of these characters have their own unique abilities. This is kind of like an action 2D platformer mixed with a puzzle game. There's a lot of puzzles along the way that you have to figure out how to use each character's abilities to solve. You also get to level up your characters and level up cool abilities that they have, and you get to unlock more and more things as you go along. Just an absolutely fantastic game that is really fun to play with a couple of friends. Spiritfarer, there's not enough time to praise. This is a very emotional game. You play as a character who is chauffeuring people to the next life. They're helping them move on. So there's a lot of emotions there, but there's also a lot of similarities to like Stardew Valley in this game, where you get to build up your boat. You get to experience talking to people and building a community there. There's some farming and gardening. The platforming in this game feels really fantastic, which is, I don't hear people praise that, but we loved it. You're on this boat, you're sailing around, you got to go collect materials from different islands, find new spirits to help move on different islands. It's just a fantastic experience. Definitely check it out. Death Squared is like one of those little sliding puzzle games. You play as these little cubes and you gotta slide around and step on buttons to open up new areas so that your co-op partner can actually move where they need to. However, there's a lot of danger in it, thus the name Death Squared. If somebody steps on the wrong button, it might shoot spikes up into the other person. It is pretty wacky and wild, and a fun, though a little bit frustrating at times, puzzle game. We never thought we would like Astro Duel 2 until we actually tried it. This game has a really unique feature where you can move seamlessly from inside a building to outer space, and as you do so, you will transform into a spaceship or into the pilot inside, and you're just shooting bad guys in these different levels, and you get to unlock new levels and unlock different variations of specific levels. You get to upgrade your ship and all sorts of stuff like that. It's a really fun combat spaceship game that I encourage you to try out and get past the fact that it's so pixelated and retro looking. Ibn Ob is a slightly older game, but this one is really interesting. You play as these two little characters, one of them's taller, one of them's shorter, and you move through this world that has like a gravity line. So if you're below this, gravity flips, and if you're above it, gravity is like normal. And you gotta work your way through going through these little gravity holes. Sometimes you're using them to build up momentum. Sometimes you gotta jump on each other to get into specific spots. There's enemies that can only be killed from one side, but appear on both sides. It is a really intriguing game to actually go ahead and play. And I've heard that it gets frustrating towards the end. We have never gotten super far into it, but we did enjoy what we played and actually had a really relaxing time with it, at least in the time that we played it. Portal 2 can be found in the Portal Companion Collection, and this game is one of the greatest co-op games of all time. The way that it works is you both have a portal gun, which shoots a portal onto the wall, and these portals let you shoot one portal here, one portal there, and you can walk through and basically teleport between them. This creates an opportunity for a lot of mind-bending puzzles, especially as you start having lasers shoot through the portals. You got to bring companion cubes through them, all sorts of different wild things. This game will blow your mind, and it is a fantastic co-op game that I urge you not to miss. TMNT Shredder's Revenge is a classic arcade retro beat 'em up. That was a lot of words to describe that. This is TMNT put into video game form in the perfect way. You get to play as all of the turtles and fight your way through these retro levels. They look fantastic, and this game is based off of retro beat 'em ups, but plays like a modern game. Tied Together has made us laugh more than any other game on this list. It is absolutely hilarious. You play as these little aliens or monsters that are chained together with these chains, and you got to work through these levels with the fact that you are chained together. That means timing your jumps perfectly. It means when one of you dies, the other has to drag them along. It is an incredibly short game. I think we beat it in like 40 minutes or something like that. But it also has some more modes. When you add another player, you get to play some more levels, and we have played this game repeatedly with separate family. We played it with my sister-in-law, we played it with my brother, we played it with my parents. Shift Happens is a 2D puzzle platformer that is just absolutely fantastic. You play as these two characters who are able to swap their masks, and that creates the opportunity for a lot of really fun puzzles where maybe you need to be short, so one of you goes under the thing, you get to throw each other, you get to use your mask to create sort of like a trampoline where you bounce each other up and down. It has a lot of creative ideas and is really fun. If you love co-op games, then you're going to love joining our Discord. It's linked at the very top of the description, and I cannot wait to see you there. We are trying to build the perfect community of co-op multiplayer fans. So come in there and join us and let us know what your favorite co-op game is. Tools Up is a game we absolutely loved playing together, and we demolished through it so fast. It's about 3 hours long and has you working to remodel homes or apartment buildings. It's really fun because you get to go in there, you get to tear out walls, you get to tear out old flooring, you get to put up new wallpaper and new carpet in the floor. It's kind of like Overcooked, but with that remodeling aspect, and not nearly as hard and infuriating as Overcooked tends to be. Struggling is one of the most interesting games on this list. It has you playing as this fleshy blob character that has like 2 heads and 2 arms, and each of you controls one of these arms, and you have to move your way through very fleshy, gross levels. There's some very interesting monsters that you'll face and have to maneuver around on the way. It is just an absolutely wild, wacky experience that I personally think everybody should try. Manic Mechanics is our favorite Overcooked-like game. This one has you repairing vehicles, but it's got something that really sets it apart in the way that you control each of the actions. They all have their own little thing that you do. So if you're painting, you're moving the joystick side to side to paint. If you're pumping up a tire, you're pressing A repeatedly. They each have their own unique way of completing a task, and that made it really enjoyable for us. Plus the really cute art style, the fun levels, and all of the different wacky things that will happen in the game. Box Boy plus Box Girl is an interesting puzzle platformer, I guess it would be called. You have these box characters that are able to shoot out a specific number of boxes to help you create platforms to move across. It makes a really interesting puzzle game that has some fun mechanics to experiment with. Unravel 2 was one of the very first co-op games that Carly and I ever played together, and we blasted through this whole thing, and it was so much fun. You play as these two little yarn characters who are attached by a thread, and you get to go through these wooded areas, you get to go through houses and explore as these little characters in this big world. It is so fun. The platforming in it is fantastic, and I really enjoy all of the unique cooperative aspects where you might have to lift each other up or create a platform together that you can walk across, and especially the swinging mechanics where you get to throw yarn and catch onto something and swing across makes you really feel like Spider-Man. Escape Academy is an escape room game. You are attending this escape academy where they're teaching you how to escape all of these different things, and it may or may not become real as you progress through the game, where you actually have danger that you need to escape, whether it's fire or water or something else. This is really good for those people who enjoy some little bit harder puzzle games, as well as if you like real life escape rooms. This is a fantastic digital experience that will make you think twice about having to go to one of those when you have a game like this at home. Ship of Fools is the first roguelite on the list. This one is really fun and unique. You play as these two little characters, and you get on a boat and you go brave the aqua apocalypse. The way that you fight in this one is you control the cannons on the boat. You get to load them with all sorts of different weird wacky ammos that you'll discover as you go through. The boss fights are fantastic. The normal enemies are fun to defeat, and you'll even have some enemies that get to crawl onto your ship or get too close, and at that point you have to whack them with your oars. It is a really fun roguelite that is more cooperative than most of the other ones, because you actually have to work together and you can actually load each other's cannons for one another and stuff like that. It just makes it a little bit more put together for two players rather than just adding an extra player. Code is another puzzle game. If you haven't been able to put it together by now, we love puzzle games. This one has you playing as a star and a rock, and they each have their own unique abilities. The rock can make rocks and stuff grow and can pick up other rocks and move them to other places. He's heavy, so he can press buttons, whereas the star will actually float on water because he's so light, and he gets to light things up and make grass grow and things like that. It is a very cozy game with interesting puzzles to solve, and you get to beautify the rooms as you go through them. There is just a couple of tricky puzzles that we ended up Googling because we got frustrated. Conan Chop Chop is another roguelite game. This one has you playing with the Conan characters, and it has a very interesting, like almost Stickman-ish cartoon style that I really enjoyed. We never got super far into this one, but I really enjoyed it. So I always like bringing it up and mentioning it because I think it deserves more time than we gave it, but Carly just found it a little too hard. It is a roguelite, which means you die and you have to restart over from the beginning, which gets a little bit frustrating if you're not used to it. But if you're willing to push through, I think this is a really good one. 39 Days to Mars. This one has you playing as these really interesting British characters who are always asking to have a cup of tea and some biscuits or crumpets or something. I don't remember exactly what it is, but you're in this rickety old spaceship trying to make your way to Mars in 39 days. And every day you're going to experience some sort of different challenge. It can be beaten really fast. I think it took us, I don't know, an hour and a half or so, but I think you can beat it in like 40 minutes. It has a really charming hand-drawn art style to it, and just the entire game is charming, though again, there was a couple of frustrating puzzles we ran into. It Takes Two is up there with Portal 2 for the best game of all time in the co-op genre. This one has you playing as a couple on the verge of divorce. They get turned into little toys by their daughter's tears, and you get to play through this amazing 3D platformer that takes you through a bunch of different genres of games. There's a fighting game, there's a dungeon crawler, there's a first-person shooter. This game is really unique and takes you through all of these different genres. It's constantly introducing new mechanics and taking them away before they get stale. Definitely check this one out. D-Corp is a really fun tower defense game. You play as these cute little robots who are going to these planets and mining this purple gem and trying to put it into a grinder. But while you're doing that, you're getting attacked by all of these different bugs, and you have to set up guns to defend them, and you can even fight off some of them a little bit yourself. It is a blast, though we did have a little bit of difficulty just playing with 2 players. I assume it's easier with more, I don't know. Biped is one of the cutest co-op games on this list. You play as these little robots again, and you actually have to control their feet. So you walk with each of the joysticks, one controls each foot. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, but then you get used to it and it's just beautiful. You can grab things with your leg and move them. There's all sorts of different puzzles to solve. There's some swinging puzzles where you have to swing each other across to different areas. There's some puzzles where you have to step on the right color to move the platform. It's just a fantastic experience that is about 3 hours long. Ember Knights is one of the games we have the most hours on in this list. This one is a roguelite game that is our favorite roguelite we've ever played. You play as these little Ember Knights and you work your way through, I think there's 5 worlds. You unlock new weapons as you go along, you unlock new different abilities, and you get to start chaining things together that create a fantastic, powerful character as you go along. It's just so much fun, and it's hard to describe exactly what it is, but it just feels really good, and it was super addictive. We always have trouble not trying for another run. If you've made it this far, then I know that you love co-op games, which is why I want to recommend this shirt to you. There is 101 different fantastic couch co-op games that we love and recommend to you. The 51 games in this very video are on this shirt, plus 50 more. So if you want to get it, you can go to thecoopstop.com to pick it up. I hope you do, and thank you so much for supporting the channel if you do pick it up. Rivertales Stronger Together is actually releasing in 2 days from the time I'm recording this video, but is out now for you to play. This has you playing as Finn the fish and Furple the cat, and the two of you actually have to work together throughout it. You're 2 very unlikely companions, and if you fall in the water or you fall on land, you get to help each other back into your proper place, and you work through this twisting environment of water and land. There are a ton of fun opportunities to work together with bouncing mushrooms that get to bounce each of you up. There's turtles that one of you will have to jump on and the other will have to lead somewhere. It is designed specifically with co-op in mind and is perhaps one of the best co-op games you could play. Curse of the Sea Rats. That's the first time I have ever said the name of that game without trying to do some sort of accent with it. I loved this game. Now, we did run into some bugs because we played an early release, but I'm hoping they're fixed by now. It is a Metroidvania where you play as these humans that were turned into rats, and you've got to go after the evil witch Flora Byrne, and you're going through all of these different areas, caves and above land things and trees, and you're fighting fantastic bosses, and you're upgrading your own skills and abilities. It is really fun. Don't Starve Together is a survival game. This one has you stranded in the middle of nowhere, and you just start collecting flowers and tree branches and stones until you can craft an axe and chop down trees, and then you can get a pickaxe and mine rocks and all of these different things. It is your basic survival game, but it is so much fun. You have to make sure you get a campfire before night comes or you're gonna end up dying in the dark. The game has some really interesting things you have to pay attention to. You have to make sure you don't starve. You also have to make sure that you don't go insane, and you have to keep your health up. And you're just experimenting with all of these different things, having no clue what anything is. And it does have a permadeath feature where if you die, that's it, you have to start a new world, but you can change the settings to be something a little bit easier, which is what we do. I think I might be going a little too long on some of the games, so we're going to speed it up a little bit. Stardew Valley is fantastic. We've talked about it multiple times. This is a farming simulator with a lot of community aspects. You get to farm, you get to fish, you get to cave, you get to make a boyfriend, or all of these different features. It is really fun and cozy, and it is the game we have the most hours in together. So definitely check it out. Degrees of Separation is an interesting 2D puzzle platformer. You play as one character who is cold and one character who is hot, and your worlds can never come together. So you actually move around each other and create this crisp line of hot and cold, and that changes the environment. So the cold person's going to freeze the water and the hot person's going to melt the water, obviously. And that creates some really interesting fun puzzles to experience. Heave Ho is kind of like struggling in the fact that you control the arms of your character, but in this one you each have your own character. It's a very minimal platformer where you have to grab on and move and grab and move and grab and move, and you have to swing yourself across to different platforms so that you can actually make it to the end. It is really fun and absolutely hilarious. Good Job has you working up the food chain in a company, and you get to cost them a lot of money as you do so. It's going to give you specific jobs to accomplish, and obviously you want to accomplish those, but the really fun side objective that we always give ourselves is to trash as much stuff as we can, because it gives you a count of all of the money that you're costing the company as you do so. It's more of a just goof and gaff type of game, while you can also complete the main objective of each level. Game Builder Garage is a really fun one. This is a solo game technically, but it teaches you how to design your own video games and then lets you play them. So you can actually work together to design a video game and then play it together in co-op or in PvP multiplayer or something like that. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a game we've trashed on a little bit, but if you're playing with a less experienced gamer or a kid, it is a fantastic experience. The biggest problem we have is that Kirby is really cool and fun to play with and has all of these different abilities that he gets to use, whereas player 2 is a little bit more lame and stays the exact same throughout the game. And then there are a lot of levels in the game that only let you play with Kirby, but I would definitely recommend it for less experienced gamers to really get into this style of game. Lego Harry Potter is really fun. We love the Lego games. They take fantastic stories and make them digestible with some humor and fun and Lego bricks everywhere. They're just really fun games for kids or adults alike. And you could probably find your favorite fandom made into a Lego game somewhere. We're just recommending Lego Harry Potter. Luigi's Mansion 3 is really fun to play with 2 players. However, it does take, I think, about 2 hours to actually unlock the 2-player mode. But once you do that, one of you gets to play as Luigi and the other gets to play as Gooigi, and you have different abilities that complement one another that you have to work together to accomplish all sorts of different tasks throughout the mansion as you're trying to catch ghosts and stuff. Mario Bros. U Deluxe is a fantastic 2D platformer that has you playing with the Mario characters. This one is really after my heart because I really enjoyed the Wii version when I was a kid, so I loved getting to play this one as well. Snipper Clips is an interesting and unique co-op game that has you able to snip apart different pieces of one another to create the shapes that you need to. Maybe one of you needs to be long and skinny in order to push a button. Maybe one of you needs to have a hoop shape in them so you can carry a ball somewhere. It's really fun to try to create these different shapes and actually solve the puzzles together. Mario 3D World is a really fun 3D platformer in the Mario universe. This one has a little bit of competitive aspect because it does tell you who has the crown at the end of each level, which is like who's doing best. So you get to have that competitiveness of trying to do better than one another. But it's also really fun to just play through the levels and help one another and experience all that this game has to offer. Very Valet is an absolutely fantastic game. This one has you playing as valet attendants who come, they take the car, you got to go park it as fast as you can and return to get another car and go park it before you have to go get that other car and return it in time. But the twist is that they don't care how damaged their car is when you return it to them, so you are jumping it off cliffs and shooting it with catapults and running across airplane runways while the plane is coming down to take off. It is really fun, hilarious. We have laughed in this one just shy of the amount we laughed in Tied Together from the beginning of this video. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is fantastic. This is like the new the Mario Bros. U Deluxe game, except better. This one introduces some wonder flowers that you get to use that will create a whole wacky situation where maybe you're playing as a Goomba, maybe you're playing as Goo, maybe there's rhinos running around. It is very interesting, and we had a blast playing through this entire game. There are only 7 games left on the list, so before we move on, I just do want to remind you about this shirt. You can find it at thecoopstop.com. This is a great opportunity to be like, hey look, let's play this game, honey, or this game. It's a great way to find new games to play together on the fly. WarioWare Get It Together was an absolute blast. This one is filled with a whole bunch of different micro games, which are smaller than mini games. They take only a few seconds to complete. It gives you a quick instruction and you've got to figure out how to do it. It might give you somebody's face and their hand like this, and you gotta shove the finger into the nose. It's just different wacky little challenges like that. There's not a whole lot of cooperativeness to it, but it is really fun to play together and to both try to figure out what it is you need to do so quickly. Trinity Trigger is a little bit of a different one from what we've talked about so far. This is a JRPG. Again, it does take a little bit of time to actually unlock co-op in this game, but once you do, you get to play with up to 3 players, and you each have your own character that has their own skills and stuff that they get to unlock and different things that they get to do, and is just a lot of fun to run around this map and find the little hidden secrets and stuff and experience the story together. Let's Cook Together is another Overcooked-esque game, but the big difference that we had with this one is the difficulty. You actually get to choose your own difficulty, which made it a lot less frustrating than Overcooked. We weren't constantly yelling at each other, and we actually had a lot of fun walking around the kitchen and finding all the little items and tossing them to one another. It was a ton of fun and is a great Overcooked-like game that is not infuriating. Chicory, A Colorful Tale is a beautiful watercolor adventure. You play as a janitor who's found the paintbrush to paint the world. All of the color has been erased, and now it's up to you to paint it in a variety of colors to figure out why the color disappeared and overcome the big bad in it. It's a really fun story to experience and just a cozy game to play together where you both get to work together in coloring the world, and as you color different things that might unlock new areas or solve different puzzles. Cat Quest 2 is an action RPG filled with cat and dog puns around every single corner. There is a ton of gear to collect and spells to learn and things to upgrade and an adventure to be had as you go through this world and see all of the little cat themed names of places written on the ground. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is a fantastic Donkey Kong 2D platformer. You get to go through all the platforming stages, do some swimming, collect bananas, fight fantastic bosses. Just a lot of fun to experience, especially if you are a fan of Donkey Kong like my wife is. Before we move on to that last game, let me know in the comments if any of these games have sparked your interest and you're wanting to pick them up. Pico Park is more than it looks like. Yes, it looks very simplistic, and at times it really is, but it is all about working together to make it to the end of the levels. Whether it's standing on the right buttons, whether it's jumping on each other's heads and running across and timing the jumps so that you can actually make it over different things, or dangling one another under a bridge to get a key or something like that. It is a really fun game that I believe goes up to 8 players. The Nintendo Switch has a bunch of free game demos that will let you check out multiplayer games for free, and this video right here has us checking out 10 of the best ones. I cannot wait to see you over there. We love you guys. Y'all are awesome.